Hi, my name is Jim, and I'm your host for Baby Boomer Tales. Please visit our website at babyboomertales.com. We have links to the Facebook page and also to all of our links where you can find our podcast. Our podcast is released every Wednesday, and hope you stay with us. Our title for today is Vacations from the Past. And what prompted this title is I just got back from vacation. So I'll work my way there, but it made me think of places I've gone and things I've seen. And so I just want to share some of that with you. Maybe it'll prompt some of your memories of vacations you took when you were a kid, or when you first were having a family, or maybe places you go now. My first vacation that I remember is we went to the World's Fair in 1960 in Seattle. My dad bought a Shasta camp trailer and threw all of us kids in the back of the station wagon, and we went to Yellowstone and spent several days there. I remember a few things from Yellowstone. I remember checking into the park at Grand Teton National Park, and the Tetons, even though I was raised in the mountains, I was impressed with those, which is amazing because I didn't care about mountains or anything at 12 years old or whatever I was. And then we got into the park, and I remember stopping, having bears kind of put their front paws up on the car begging for food. And Old Faithful, I do remember Old Faithful. I don't remember any of the other geysers, but I remember Old Faithful. That impressed me that it could keep such good time. That was before the big earthquake that changed all that for Old Faithful. But it went off every hour on the hour or something like that. It was amazing. But what I remember the most about Yellowstone is my youngest brother, Don, contracted the mumps, and he was sick, and I remember him kind of standing in the door of the trailer, and Mom wouldn't let him go out, and he just hanging out there all swollen up. Poor guy. Of course, he's probably too young. He's probably too young to remember that trip too much anyway. But he made it, and by the time we got to Seattle, he was okay. And I remember going up in the Space Needle and throwing my gum. I was chewing gum, and I threw it off the edge. And then I panicked and thought, oh my goodness, what about if I kill somebody? Because it was way up there. And I tried listening to the news when my dad had the news. I didn't hear of anybody getting killed, so I think I was off the hook there. I don't know what would possess me to throw my gum off the Space Needle. Probably because I was 12. We also were going to Puget Sound, take a day away from the World's Fair, go to Puget Sound. That's where my dad was stationed during World War II. And us kids led a revolt wanting to go back to the fair and to the carnival part of the fair where we were spending all our money. Not the World's Fair itself, just the carnival. And if I remember right, my dad finally turned around and went back. I feel sorry that I did that, and that he didn't just do what he came there to do. I don't know why. I guess we must have been really very bad. I mean, there were 4 of us, so we outnumbered them. That's too bad, Dad. I'm sorry. I don't know if he ever got back to Puget Sound. But that Shasta camp trailer, we would go camping on like a Saturday night, just after work, pull that up into the mountains somewhere and stay. And every summer, for years, probably 4 or 5 years, we would take it up to a resort town about 16 miles away from us that had a lake, and stay there for a week. My dad would drive back and forth to the grocery store, and we would just hang out there at the campground And they had a pool and a trampoline. It was a great place. And a lot of people just stayed there during the summer, and some would just come for a day or two. But we did it every summer. One time I walked outside and I heard somebody yelling, "There's a kid in the pool." So I walked out there, and my mom was sitting with this lady having coffee in our trailer. And I looked in the pool, and here's this little kid down at the bottom of the pool, and his eyes are all bugged out, and his arms are out to the side, kind of floating. He looked to me like he was just underwater holding his breath. And I said, "Oh, he's just playing." And this lady came out of the trailer and yelled, "He's not playing," and jumped in and grabbed him. And the kid was drowning. Well, they rescued him. Thank goodness they rescued him. And he was okay. And I always thought, well, I could have been a hero. But I thought he was just goofing off. Of course, I was 12. I don't know how good a hero I could have been. One of my brothers was sitting up on a rock up on a hill watching the whole thing, never ever moved. And we asked him later when he told us he watched the whole thing. He said, "Well, I didn't know. I thought he was playing." That's how my memory remembers it anyway. When I was 18 and had graduated from high school, my parents took us to California. So I used to live in California when I was a little kid in San Diego. And what I remember about that, and I shared it once, is that we were in Newport Beach, I believe, and Bobby Kennedy was shot in L.A., not far away. But we went to Disneyland, and it was the last vacation I took with my parents. Now, we did a few things, but I wouldn't call them vacations, where we traveled to a few places. As I got older and got married and had kids, we took our kids to Disney World, and that was fun. We drove, and we didn't have much money back then, and stayed in kind of a couple cheap motels. But we spent 2 or 3 days in Disney World, and we had a great time. Later on, after my kids were raised, my wife and I went, and my youngest daughter asked if she paid her way, if she could catch on with us. We went with a group of friends, rented a big house there in Orlando, and that was a really good time. For our 25th anniversary, we went to Hawaii. Just went to one island, went to Oahu, and spent 4 or 5 days there. And this was the first vacation I was ever on that I didn't want to go home. I started making grand plans how I could live in Hawaii. It was really wonderful and laid back. Of course, we were on vacation and not there trying to make a living. I have no idea what it'd be like. But the whole culture of it was great. I just loved that. And speaking of culture, about 8 or 9 years ago, went to Israel, and we took a tour, and they take you around to all these places, the ruins of, well, these used to be such and such and such and such, and all I could see is a bunch of rocks. I didn't appreciate the ruins at all. But I love the Sea of Galilee and the Golan Heights, and I love the culture there. It was just wonderful, and that was the second time that I went on vacation. I didn't want to go home. I thought I could live here. I could put up with everything the Israelis have to put up with, because it was wonderful. I really did like that. Taken a lot of other vacations, but as my children started to have children, I found most of my vacations were going to go see my grandchildren, and that's okay. I thoroughly love going to see my grandchildren. It's worth putting off going somewhere else so that I can spend some time with the ones that don't live close to me. But we just got back from vacation, and we went to the Grand Canyon. We were going to go to the Grand Canyon about 5 years ago, and things came up, and we had to put it off. And I thought, if we don't go now, we'll never go. My wife is instrumental in me going. I may just stay around the house all the time if it wasn't for her. So we did a road trip on this one. We tried to weigh the differences of driving to flying, and it seemed like we'd have to do a lot of driving anyway, because the Grand Canyon's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So we got to Flagstaff and spent the night, and woke up the next morning and there'd been 9 inches of snow. And that's amazing. But for some reason I thought the Grand Canyon was in the desert, so we thought, well, we'll go to the Grand Canyon and we'll be fine. Flagstaff, Arizona, elevation's approximately 7,000 feet. Well, so's the Grand Canyon. So we were 7,000 feet above sea level, and it was blowing and snowing. and amazing. I thought, man, this isn't the desert, and what are we doing here in March? But when we first went to the rim to look out into the canyon, everything cleared off and it was bright and sunny and clear, and the first view took my breath away. It was amazing. Now, for the next 2 days, we looked at the canyon for many, many spots. We drove and got out and looked at the rim and went to different areas and looked over the rim. We didn't go down, but they say it's a mile vertical drop to the bottom. And we didn't plan it where we'd hike down or ride a donkey down or anything. But that's okay. I rode a donkey one time in Jordan up thousands of feet, and it was very precarious, and I didn't know how that donkey and I didn't topple over the edge to our deaths. So I've had enough donkey riding. I had a donkey when I was a little boy. So donkeys and I are okay together, but I don't want to ride one down the floor of the Grand Canyon. While we were on that vacation, we went to the Hoover Dam. Very, very amazing what man can make. We drove around the dam, and it was late in the day. We had actually planned on going the next day, but we got there and it was open, so we went. And then we parked and walked over the Pat Tillman Bridge. And Pat Tillman was an NFL player that after 9/11 he quit playing football and joined the service and was killed in action. And so the Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge is amazing. You walk over it and you can just look right there. It's just a spectacular view. Just amazing. All that went into making that. It has to be a man-made wonder of the world. I'm sure it is. When you're at the Hoover Dam, you are 30 minutes from Las Vegas. I was at Las Vegas once before, but I was much younger and more full of probably mischief than I am now. So we went into Las Vegas and got a hotel room on the Miracle Mile and went and got something to eat and went back to the hotel room, and I had the best sleep of my vacation in Vegas. That's about all we did. The next day we drove up and down and looked at the sights, and then we headed for home. And once I was done with vacation, I was done. I wanted to be home, and we drove hard. We drove long, but we got back, and it was a great time. And I thank my wife for making me go on vacation. Vacation is a good thing to get away. And if you can afford to go and experience vacations where you see parts of our great country or other places in the world, or maybe just take a 4-hour trip somewhere like what we do with Branson, Missouri constantly, you have to feel very blessed to be able to do that. It's good for the spirit, good for the soul to see how other people live. It's great to see parts of this country and this world that will take your breath away. I hope you get to go places once in a while. Now for a new segment. This is the top 10 singles 55 years ago today. Number 10 by Louis Armstrong was Hello Dolly. Number 9, I Love You More and More Every Day by Al Martino. Number 8, Java by Al Hirsch. Number 7, Twist and Shout by the Beatles. Number 6, Navy Blue, Diane Rainey. Number 5, by the Beach Boys, Fun, Fun, Fun. Number 4, Dawn, Go Away, The Four Seasons. Number 3, Please Please Me, The Beatles. Number 2, I Want to Hold Your Hand, The Beatles. And the clean sweep of the top 3, The Beatles, and the number 1 song, up from number 2 last week, She Loves You. That was fun, wasn't it? No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. That'll do it for me this week. I'll be back next Wednesday.